now that the team is 500, we're into 2025. I think everyone was looking to the draft, but now we might be looking postseason. And so the question that we have now is Trajan Langdon going to make a big move?
Boom.
Do we draft? Do we trade? Do we tank? Do we push for the playoffs? Do we stay the course? Do we extend Ivy and or Duran? What's going to happen, Eric? What do you think? What do you want to happen right now?
So it's so vastly different than where I was even like a week ago as far as like the plan for this team.
We were talking about draft picks.
Talking about draft picks with our last guest with Tyler Metcalf. Shout out to him and No Ceilings. Great squad.
Killed it.
Also killed the Tim Hardaway face and stuff. Also shout out Tim Hardaway Sr. Wanted to make sure we weren't being jerks about it. We love you, dude. So happy to see you.
Yeah, we had a nice little discourse with THS. A joke is good when you have to explain it. That's always a sign of a funny joke. No, that's on us. But that was purely like in admiration. We just love seeing him at the games. We love his stone face, steady no matter what's going on the
Act
floor.
like you've been there before, because he's been there before.
Nothing phases him.
So as far as Trajan's big move and like where we're at, we in the past had talked about the concept of getting maybe Zach LaVine or getting Vooch or like Lonzo Ball or something, like taking on some salary cap and just like adding a player who can maybe help a little bit. Then Ivy went down and people were like, oh man, do they really need to like either straight tank or go all in? Should we go after like Brandon Ingram or like Zion Williamson? And I'm not for either of those because I think that not just the play in, but the playoff is like a real thing. Like the competition is Miami with a disgruntled Jimmy Butler. I'll get into him in a second. Then Indiana, who is very similar where we're at, and I'll get into them in a second as well. Atlanta, I think, is a very similar team to Detroit in that they're on the up and up. They have a guy who is their star, who's also a great distributor, and they have some like awesome young talent around him, but still some questions, especially in the front court. So like pretty comparable teams. We all remember the Atlanta game where Cade got the game-winning basket and block. Very similar, like close teams. I'm excited about those matchups. Philadelphia's climbing up. The Bulls are like figuring out what to do. They might fall apart. Who knows? They might ship off their assets. Maybe they'll stay the course. I don't know. They should
never know what the Bulls are doing.
It's a great point. You really don't know. All you know that the Bulls are doing is disappointing their fan base. I think
I can speak to that secondhand. I really can.
They're feeling pretty bad about the whole thing. So now where do they stand? They're playing at this rate with the rest that they have. They could make that noise without making a move, even though they have that $14 million cap space. They don't have to do anything. They hold all the cards. They're the only team in the NBA that has cap space to make a trade work for any of that stuff. Like I'm seeing a lot of teams or a lot of people pitching these trades, and it's like, oh, use Detroit as a dumping ground. Detroit doesn't have to be a dumping ground. They hold the cards. That cap space is more valuable than draft picks almost at this point. So I'll just get into what I want. I know I said yesterday, if you watch Pistons Jack, shout out Pistons Jack. He's an incredible content creator for the Pistons. Great guy, fun stuff.
So prolific, so dedicated. Love his stuff.
I was on his Fan Reacts yesterday, and I said I don't want them to make a big move, and then I slept on it, and I talked to you a little bit about it. I had mentioned off stream. I'm all over the place. I waver. That's how you know I'm a Democrat.
It's a roller coaster of emotions.
I brought this up to you a while ago that I would love to see them not in the trade but in free agency. If he opts out, the Pistons pursue Jimmy Butler on a max deal for a couple of years, like 2 or 3 years, because I think he's another creator. He's another scorer. He's got that dog in him, and he's great defensively. And he's got wonderful playoff experience. Like that's cool. He has opposite vibes of what the Pistons vibes are for the most part, but if you don't have him for a long-term plan, not that big a deal. Now, I kind of want them to trade for him. I think he would be very helpful. After watching like yesterday and just like the lack of ability for the Pistons to create looks without Cade on the floor, it seems like they need somebody else out there to to make things happen. And if it helps the perimeter defense, then we don't have to worry as much about the rim protection because they got some rim protection. And if Jimmy has something to prove on top of it, him joining the Pistons and leading them into the playoffs or like helping them get through the playoffs is like him on the Timberwolves taking the third string squad and beating the shit out of the rest of the starters.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think the Jimmy you would get would have a huge chip on his shoulder following this Miami situation. I think there's even a world in which Pat Riley might see shipping him to Detroit as like a punishment. And I certainly wouldn't see it that way. Personally, I'm a little wary of the fact that you would probably have to, give him at least 2 years of a max?
Yeah.
To retain him. I don't want to just like acquire assets and stay the course. I think there's like more of a stopgap move to be made. I've kind of cooled on Vooch because of Duran's play, and just because as much as I want to see Cade with a stretch big, I think there's a chance that this year is an anomaly. And speaking of Bulls fans, they're pretty ready to get rid of him even in a career year. And so that's subjective and that's anecdotal. But yeah, I would be really interested in a backcourt partner who is steady and can shoot. Someone like a CJ McCollum. His contract's not crazy. He's got a relationship with Trajan. And I think, unlike with Jimmy, if you were to pick up CJ, you would still have flexibility next season to go after like a Miles Turner or like another piece, and maybe have some more flexibility to potentially get like another big player, like a KD or someone like that. So I will say like CJ is a defensive liability, whereas Jimmy is not. They're both creators. They both can shoot. They would both take pressure off Cade. So, to me, it's just more of like money and flexibility.
I get that. I can see on top of just like him helping out scoring wise and playmaking wise on this team, how if you have him, because I think he's on the books next year for 20 plus as well, as far as the contract goes. Let me look that up real quick. But if you have him and you have Tobias, that's like 40 plus, 50 plus that you can use to trade for somebody else. And like when we look at the Phoenix situation, you really think that Beal's going to let himself get traded anywhere? That contract is rough. It's untradeable.
And the no trade clause.
And the no trade clause.
To your point.
So like, not only will no team take him on, he won't leave because like it's not like he's going to go to another contender. His best chances with Phoenix. They have KD for next year, and then they have Booker on the books for many years. Somebody from that's probably going to be available. So will that fit? Maybe that could be a good look. I'm wary of the defense and like the size, like kind of big time. So here's why I like the idea of Jimmy for 3 like this year and then 2 on top of it, as opposed to the idea of having CJ this year and then getting somebody for a longer run. Last year, the NBA darlings were the Indiana Pacers. They won the in-season cup. They were looking great, like fresh story. You have their point guard, their creator. He's doing his all-star celebration year. He's having a great time. In that period, they got some young guys who are showing up. They're excited. They're excited team in the East, and they can make some noise. So they go out by the trade deadline and they get Pascal Siakam, kind of an older star, looking for a new team, and then they sign him to a 4-year max contract. They make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, which is great. It's so cool for them to have done that. I think at the beginning of the season, I even said I think they should be favorites to be like in there. I don't feel that way now, but they had the opportunity. What's the record now? Like 20 and 19 or something?
A game ahead of us?
A game ahead of us. Same record as us. And they're in the second apron. They're in a tough situation. They're losing Miles Turner at the end of this year because they can't afford to keep him. They're going to have a hard time signing Ben Mass to an extension, right? Like, yeah, for Miles, yeah, that's the thing. You could possibly get him in the offseason. I'm wary of signing a player, like a max player, to a long-term deal. And to me, if you get 2 years in like a team option at the end of it, but you're playing max, especially for Jimmy, who's 36. So if you give him a 2-year deal, he'll be 38 at the end of that. Like that's.
And he's 35 now, but he's Yeah,
Sure.
same
So he's
same
like
thing. That's up there.
it's up there in age. So there's no reason to sign him to a big one, and no one's gonna give him like a super long. I'd be shocked if someone gave him a 4-year deal. Like
Well, and availability for him in the regular season is a thing.
it's rough, and he has a history of attitude stuff. And if you look at the deal that he wants is something like the Paul George deal with Philadelphia 76ers. Paul George has ruined that deal for everybody in the future because it ain't going so great over in Philadelphia. So do I want a player like Booker to come over here for the long term and be like in a big max deal with Cade also in a big max deal? Maybe, because Booker's like a great player. I just would prefer a great player in a short term deal, even if it's at the max, starting right now. Especially somebody who's a two-way player and who has like deep playoff history. So that's the big move I would like. What is the big move you're expecting, though, I guess?
I think it's going to be something more like the CJ thing, or something potentially with New Orleans, both because of flexibility and Trajan's history and his background there. I also think it would be interesting, if the Warriors got desperate to make a move for Jimmy and we were able to get like a Wiggins in a third team deal. I think that would be nice. Obviously, we talked about availability for him is a little bit of a question mark too, but I think he fits in very nicely.
I love Wiggs.
But Jimmy's way more of like a number one, number two option that like would really take pressure off Cade. Yeah, I don't know. I like CJ's ability to play on and off ball. Again, he doesn't have the defense or the grit that Jimmy has, or that just like weird magic ability to drag a decent team to multiple finals. It's pretty incredible. I worry that age, availability. I'm not as worried about personality stuff. I like that he's a dog, and that to me is like a feature, not a bug. But no, I think it's probably going to be smaller. I would be surprised if he took a big swing like that. But I think the cool thing now is like, I wouldn't be mad either way. Like I'm excited to watch. Like the Pistons aren't a great team right now, but they are a fun and competitive team. And that is so huge. I think there's still like, you see their youth, you see the turnovers sometimes, you just see sloppiness and or just a lot of the guys haven't been there before. And a lot of the vets aren't great enough to just completely take over in every game. But they're so fun to watch, and they have such a culture to them now. And even talking about like Duran's improvements, I think JB deserves a ton of credit. He's talked about just how much he loves playing for him and what a great coach is. And I forget what podcast, probably multiple of them have talked about this, but Ivy was in the doghouse last year, like you said. So seeing him pop off this year is like, oh, wow, it's such a stark difference from what he looked like last year just because of the circumstances. Duran just started every game as far as I can recall. But like you said, that's kind of detrimental in a different way, in that, does he think like it's all going well? Like, this is just like, I'm doing what I need to do. And, now that we have other guys who need the ball and can shoot and can pass, he doesn't have as many looks. Like a lot of his opportunities just come straight from Cade, or he doesn't get them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I just think it's so much fun to watch this team, and I feel like we could do nothing and I would still be excited about our chances. Absolutely. Or we could take a really big swing, and I would be really interested to see how the team looks.
The only thing I'm going to sneeze here real quick. Let me mute. I'll mute it right now. I pulled it off. The only
Graceful.
thing that I would be upset about is
Bless you.
Thank you. Bless Hoops. Bless Hooper. The only thing I would be upset about is if they made a move for a player like let's say Bradley Beal or something, and they like mortgaged their future, and that player it didn't have like a clear cut way to work together in the system when Ivy comes back. That's the thing. Like I'm a little bit worried about is because Ivy's not here right now. We can't really see what the big move will be like once this team is in full. Because I feel like Ivy's done enough to earn an extension. Like, truly, even if it's the Jalen Green contract, like that amount of money, I'm still kind of down with
I agree.
it. He's playing really nice. When the Bradley Beal trade rumor came out, I was comparing their stats, and I was like, there's no competition between these two. Like, Beal's making 50 plus a year. They're shooting the same. They're making the same amount of points, shooting roughly the same from three, and this is like a career year for Beal in the 3-point land. In the 7 years previous, he was averaging like 35, 34 from 3-point. So like,
And how old is he?
32, I think.
Yeah,
Ashton the
like
Trader, what up, Doe, dude? Let us go full throttle to you in the chat, man. Ashton, by the way, I still want to know that workout plan. I still want to be able to do the shot.
Yeah, we want the Cade workout. We think we can do it.
I'm positive I can pull it out. I was watching Hustle today.
I'm ready to puke.
Watching that montage of him training. I was like, bro, I got to find a hill. I can do this. I'm going to run up a hill all day, in the snow. It is snowing out here right now. But like, I love the way this team's playing together. Trajan from jump has pitched this concept of we all have to be on the same page. I want my coach on the same page as my players that are on the same page as me and like the ownership. All the moves have proved that so far. You can check out how the players are acting around one another. They love each other. They're goosing each other up. Watch Beasley stream. You got to watch his stream. He's very fun.
Dubs in the chat.
Dubs in the chat, right? Like, I want them to find a player that fits in that. And I don't even want them to break up this team necessarily because they are playing so well together. This is fun basketball to watch. So I want to keep the good vibes going. That's pretty much all I care about. There was a report from Real GM on Twitter that the Pistons are considering a pivot away from renting out cap space at the deadline and might like make a move for somebody. That's cool. I just want them to make the right move. Like I really want it to be a fun one, an exciting one, a good one that I think will get this whole fan base like hyped up on as well. And I mean, the last thing to say about it is I think whoever comes here will be pleasantly surprised with how much they're embraced by the city and how much the city itself has to offer, because Detroit is in some kind of way right now, and the way is a good way.
The sports vibes in Detroit are incredible. And I just want to add too, like, if we didn't make any moves, that would be fine. Like, the team would still be fun and watchable. Yes. But I just think Cade is demanding like support. I think he's playing at such a level now that you don't want to see him like so taxed. Like I think you want to see someone who can take a little bit of that pressure off so that he can keep sustaining the level of play that he's doing, if not improve. You know, it's warranted at this point.